Yeah.
And about, my question was, what did they understand about what you're doing? I mean, after the tour, I assume that they fully understood, but prior to that, it sounded like...
Well, they knew I was in North Dakota. They knew I was a missile officer. They knew that it must have been important because the FBI had come around asking questions. They knew I launched missiles, but that was about it. And as I related, I took my parents out to Echo for a tour, and they were in the back of the capsule. A message came in, and I told the duty crew that I'd take care of it. I walked over and I picked up a message book, copied the message, called it in, and when we were going back upstairs in the elevator, my mother said, "Johnny, when that bell rang, you walked up and you took out that red binder. It said top secret on it." "Yeah." "Well, you opened it up. Were you supposed to do that?" "Mom, that's what I do." "Well, did you have one of those locks too?" "Yes, Mom, I really do have one of those locks, and I even wear a gun." Mom just did not register that her son Johnny did this for a living. And it was only after they came out that they really understood how real it was. It was an epiphanal moment for them.
Sometimes I think it can be a very difficult job to explain.
Yeah, you can explain it.
I think when you see it,
yeah, you can explain. You can explain it, but they may not understand it until they see it for real.
All right, a couple of, I guess, big questions, or kind of wide, open-ended questions. One is a lot of, in 1991, the Strategic Arms Treaty was signed. Big drawdown in missiles. Do you remember that time very well? I mean, it was, about 10 years after you had left here.
Yeah, they did. We had there were some significant changes in 91. They started to look at force structure and pulling birds off alert. Yeah, I was glad it happened. I don't think anybody who ever sat here in this hole ever wanted a bigger ICBM force. You really, I don't think you really can fundamentally understand the business at this very visceral level until you sit here in the middle of the night at the deputy's console behind you and you look at the little red box, and then it's absolutely real. And what you're doing is absolutely crystalline at that point. And it ought to scare you. I don't think anybody who's ever been down here late at night in that chair would ever want an expansion of the missile force. We don't want to do that. So I was glad to see the stand down. I was glad to see START. That means maybe fewer lieutenants are going to have to sit there with those dark thoughts in the middle of the night. So it didn't bother me at all. It was a good thing. We had demonstrated to the Soviet Union and to everybody else that my question is that we did have the resolve to keep our promises, and that there was no reason at all to question, do they really mean it? Because you knew we did. Well, we demonstrated that. It's time to move on.
The Association of Air Force Missileers uses the tagline, "Victors in the Cold War."
Absolutely.
Did that feel victorious to you?
Absolutely. And I belong to AAFM.
Yeah.
I'm a life member.
And then a few years later, 91, they signed the treaty that starts the drawdown. Then 95, the Base Realignment and Closure Committee selects Grand Forks as one of the ones to be. Do you remember that decision being made?
I read about it, and it was disappointing. I can see why it was made. Grand Forks, the 321st Strategic Missile Wing, was a Minuteman II configuration capsule and a Minuteman II configuration launcher. There were 200 launchers and 20 capsules of this configuration. Our wing here, the 321st, and one squadron over in Malmstrom. And because we were so different than everybody else, you know, the way I describe it, if you could imagine having a taxi cab company, and you have 800 Chevys and 200 Volvos. Volvo's a lovely car, but is it really the oddball thing you want in your fleet? We were the newest wing to go up, but we were different than everybody else. And from a logistics standpoint, it made perfect sense to take the 321st off. Changed requirements, I think, also made it much easier to take us off, and for reasons that I can't go into here. You know, the 321st and this wing did everything it was ever asked to do, and did it well, and ultimately would have made sure that the price was too dear. And it's disappointing to see it go, but I can understand why it did. We were the odd man out. We were the redheaded stepchildren. In fact, as time went on, and I did other things in the Air Force, if somebody saw me in uniform and they saw my pocket rocket, they might ask where I pulled alert, and if I said Grand Forks, oftentimes the answer was, "Oh, you're a deuce guy," because we were different than Minot and Malmstrom and all the rest.
Excellent. Well, this is your chance now. I'm all done, but what didn't I ask, or what do you want to add?
I have not been in a capsule since, I think, September 1st, 1982. And what struck me is the marvelous changes they made in habitability upstairs. But what really drove home that I was back, we opened up the door to get into the elevator, and I smelled the machinery, and that hasn't changed. And then, Mark, as you had mentioned, hearing the elevator scissors door, hearing that clang. There's no other sound like that. And then I thought, this is for real. You know, I'm going back to the Miss Lear's natural habitat. And that's really what it seems like. You know, I sit here, I don't think I've ever sat in the commander's console this long. Because the alerts were all done for the deputy's console, where all the status was kept in our system. And typically, if I was awake, my partner was asleep, and I would be sitting there. You know, for the hour or so that I've sat here, I think this is the longest time I've ever sat in a commander's chair that wasn't a trainer ride.
Excellent. Well, thank you, John.
No, thank you, Mark. This has been a lot of fun.
I very much appreciate your time and
this has been fun.
everything else. So.
Right. And need a favor, can you take a picture of me sitting here?
Yeah, actually.
Nobody will believe I was here.
Yeah, actually, I need to.
Nobody will believe I was here.
Part of the thing that Archives wants is a picture. So.
I end this video by pressing this button then?
Yep.